continually be curious, continually be asking questions, continually ask the question, if this was a lie, if this thing that I believe or this thing that I'm being told or this thing that I'm being shown was a lie, who would benefit from me believing the lie? And if that somebody is a government, or it is a financial institution, or it is a major corporation, you better be questioning it. You better be diving deep into that, being curious and questioning it. Hey, how is everyone? It's so great to be back recording episodes of the Culture Cast. I have missed this, though obviously I've been busy with Faith on the Fringe and really enjoying recording that. It's nice to be like getting back into the groove of the Culture Cast and into the flow of really thinking about and contemplating how the kingdom of darkness is using media and technology and politics and entertainment to indoctrinate us, to program us, to control us, and to keep us from God. And so today I wanted to really dive into how we're being desensitized and what that really looks like in today's world and the things that we can do to prevent that. The first thing I want to say on this episode is that, as followers of Jesus and as people that strive to live the way, which we should be doing if we're following Jesus Christ of Nazareth, we are called to be set apart. And I want to talk a little bit about what that means to me, because I don't believe that Jesus calls us to not be in the world. We are called to be set apart, but we are still operating in the world. And I really, truly believe that the charge that we have been given is to take back dominion of the earth, to take back territory in the areas where the kingdom of darkness has, put a stake and is claiming. That we are really called to not be of the world, or maybe to be of the world, but not to be in it, if that makes sense. We don't have a choice unless we want to move off grid where we have absolutely no technology and, we're living off the land and we're not communicating at all with anything in the outside world. We don't have a choice. We are literally attacked by programming and conditioning and indoctrination all day, every day. If you are on a mobile phone at all throughout your day, you're being watched, you're being targeted, you're being listened to, they are sending ads to you, they are watching what you do. And I don't say that to be doom and gloom. I don't say that to freak you out. I'm just letting you know that that's the reality of the day and age that we're living in. We are smack dab in the middle of a technological revolution. And that has its own set of issues and benefits and risks when it comes to programming and conditioning. And I'll do a whole episode on that at some point. But the purpose of this podcast is not to just expose things and then leave you in a state of fear, because we are not called to have a spirit of fear, okay? It literally says, fear not or do not fear more times than anything else in the Bible. So the purpose of this podcast is not to get you to freak out about being on technology or worried about being out in the world or be constantly paranoid about being programmed and conditioned. The purpose of the program is of this program, of this podcast is to equip you. I want to equip you. I want to give you the tools to help you be able to see where the programming is coming from, where the indoctrination is coming from, to ask the right questions, to stay curious, and then ultimately to be equipped to fight back, to take back territory, and to share the good news, which is the gospel of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And that all of us have an opportunity to be one with Christ Jesus and be in Jesus and have Jesus be in us, and have the ability to really walk and live the way. So let's just talk about the reality of the world that we're currently living in. The reality of the world that we're currently living in is that the majority of us are on some form of technology every single day, whether it's work that we're doing on our computer, in our office, or in our home, or it's communicating with our friends and family on our smartphones. The majority of us have social media accounts. Too many of us, including me, are doom scrolling on social media, and we're not really proactively, intentionally entering into places where programming and conditioning and indoctrination are running rampant. So, on a previous episode of this podcast, I talked about social media being the devil's domain. And I really do stand by that. I believe that the online space right now, including the internet, including social media, is the kingdom of darkness's domain. It has claimed that territory and it is operating pretty much without challenge in those spaces. And Jesus really began talking to me in September of last year about taking back territory in the online space. Obviously, I already had this podcast and I wasn't quite sure what that meant. But anytime I feel like I am getting communication about something like that, it's something that I just will continue to take into prayer. It's something that I will continue to meditate on, that I will go and try to find, scriptural backing for. And, you know, one of the things that one of the messages that I feel I've been given really, really clearly is it's time for the kingdom of heaven to be more proactive in using technology and using the online space and using social media to share the good news, to bring people closer to Jesus, to share about the things that I share about on this podcast. And that comes with its own challenges as well, because we live in a day and age where consumer behavior is being controlled and manipulated. We are being programmed and conditioned into a desire for instant gratification. And so our attention spans are being trained down to get, dopamine hits within the first 3 to 7 seconds of watching a piece of content. And if we don't get that, we move into that doom scrolling pattern, which is like we're seeking the dopamine hit. We're seeking the dopamine hit. And it gets harder and harder to get that. This is all very, very intentional, because the shorter they can get our attention spans, the more difficulty we have with critical thinking, the more difficulty we have with questioning the programmed narratives. And so social media is intentionally designed to, first of all, hook you, manipulate you emotionally, and then direct you towards a desired outcome. And this happens to us all day, every day. I think I've mentioned this on this podcast before, but there is a really, really good series on YouTube. It was a docuseries that was produced by the BBC, and it's called The Century of the Self. If you have not watched this documentary, I highly recommend it. I think I'm actually going to go watch it again because it's come up a couple of times here now and then also on Faith on the Fringe. But this docuseries is about a man by the name of Edward Bernays. And Edward Bernays was Sigmund Freud's nephew. And he was a man who created the public relations industry in the United States. But he actually is the father of propaganda. And he was the man that they hired to do the war propaganda for the world wars. And he was the person, he's responsible for so many things. He's responsible for you eating bacon and eggs for breakfast. He is the person that was responsible for getting women to start smoking. But watch this series because it's very eye-opening and it shows you how intentional all of these things were. They were not done on a whim. It didn't just evolve over time. There were corporations and governments behind all of this. And they hired him because he was really, really good at controlling a narrative and manipulating the public into following the narrative that was desired by the corporation or by the government. And he used Sigmund Freud's methods to do that. So I highly recommend. I think it's a 6-part docuseries. It's about 6 hours in length. Go watch it. When I watched this the first time, I was just like, what? Like, it blew my mind. The other thing is if you really want to understand more about the origins of psychoanalysis and Freud and how that actually then developed into this manipulation of the public through his nephew, Edward Bernays, I highly recommend reading the book, The Assault on Truth. It is very heavy. It is very depressing. And you will never look at the world again the same after you read this book, but I do recommend it, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Part of this programming and indoctrination that we have been experiencing, and I'll say really, like, there has been a huge onslaught of this over the last 50 years. Really, like, in the whole time that I've been alive. I turned 50 in December, but if I look back at what I would call the desensitization campaign that's being run by the elites, the people in power and in control of our governments, the people that are running the major corporations. I definitely am a person that believes in the 13 bloodlines and that there is a Nephilim agenda that is operating on this planet. I'll be bringing some guests on this season to dive deeper into that and to talk more about that. But, there are definitely hybrid DNA super soldier programs that are happening right now on this planet. There are people that are invoking the spirits, certainly, of the Nephilim. But, I actually believe that they have actually been able to genetically reproduce these giants and these Nephilim, and that there is a lot of occult working that's happening in that area and in that arena. And, more and more information on this stuff is getting revealed to us. We saw it in the Epstein files. We saw some of it there. People who are coming out of MK Ultra programming are reporting this kind of thing. But I want to talk today, we're going to get into that on future episodes of the podcast. But today I want to talk about one thing specifically, and that is the desensitization campaign. So they have been doing this very, very intentionally through our entertainment. And it was a slow buildup. The thing about the Kingdom of Darkness that you really need to understand is that the Kingdom of Darkness plays a long game. They do not need instant gratification. That's how they control us. We're the dummies that give in to, like, oh, the dopamine hit, the instant gratification, needing the instant gratification. They don't need that. They're playing the long game, okay? So this desensitization campaign really started ramping up, I would say, around 50 years ago. But they didn't just hit us with it all at once. It was a slow build. So they started introducing a lot of blood and violence and occult symbology, and also supernatural content into our television shows, into our movies. Movies began to be gorier. They began to be more bloody. Horror films became popular. And, there was that whole, like, the 90s was a time that I remember definitely where it was like Natural Born Killers, all the Quentin Tarantino movies, where this, like, abundance of blood and violence and gore began to be this, like, really sought after form of media and entertainment. And at the same time, we started to see more overt occult symbolism showing up in our music videos and in our the concerts that we were going to by popular recording artists and musicians. And we started to see more occult languaging showing up in the lyrics of popular songs. Whole industries were created and designed around getting certain communities to become more violent. Rap music is a perfect example of that. Rap is an industry that was orchestrated by the music executives in collaboration with the CIA and some other government programs to create a more violent African American population in the United States. It was 100% done for that. It was not just because music started evolving and people started liking that kind of music. That was not what happened. These meetings happened. People have come out and been very, very vocal about these meetings and about the intention behind that music. And so, even in rock music, what started out as, I wouldn't say wholesome, but what started out as an expression through a form of music was very quickly infiltrated by satanic imagery and occult symbolism. And that began to drive that kind of heavy metal music industry as well. So, if you're not aware, the CIA has been involved and had people working in all of the music companies and all of the film studios, people on staff in those places. And they give us certain budgets for the development of content through music studios and film studios, that the content is designed to present something to the public to get them thinking a certain way about a certain subject. Now, the thing that's really fascinating is they actually do it both ways. And this is that idea that we talk about where it's actually two wings of the same bird, okay? So they are not only going to put out information that serves the narrative that they want to push on the population, they're going to recognize that there's going to be two types of people. When they win is when we're fighting each other. So when we're divided. And they have been incredibly successful at doing this in the United States. And they do it in lots of different ways. They do it racially. Let's divide Black against white. They do it politically. Let's divide left against right. They do it even from a morals and values perspective, liberals against conservatives. And so the entertainment and the music that's put out is going to fall into one of those two divisive categories. Now, they will present things that are coming in movies. So they will show us before it takes place. They will program and condition us to be desensitized to these things because they have an agenda and there is, a certain response that they want the public to have. And so they're going to begin to program the public to respond in the way that they desire them to respond. So, in the early 2000s, we had tons of Outbreak movies. Do you remember? There was a window of a few years, 2 or 3 years, where there were tons of movies coming out about outbreaks, whether it was Ebola or, some horrible thing where people had to be quarantined and had to stay at home. And there was this fear that everyone was going to die from this outbreak. We had all these movies come out talking about that. Remember? Television shows, movies. And then what happens in 2020? And how do we respond? Well, we respond exactly the way that the people in the movies responded, with fear, and that we need to depend on our government to give us answers to this thing. That is not a coincidence. That was a pre-programmed response that was achieved through very intentional promotion of a specific narrative and the response that they desired you to have through movies and entertainment that they had you watching decades before in some instances, but continued to reinforce with you through the movies and the television shows that they were releasing. So we have to be really aware of what we're seeing. And so for me, I'm always fascinated. I'm always interested. Ooh, what's the theme in movies right now? What are they showing us right now? Well, right now we're back in a disclosure day type of narrative. So we're seeing lots of movies coming out about space, about aliens, about alien disclosure. And it's like, oh, okay. So what's getting ready to come down the pipe? You can predict what's going to happen by paying attention to what's going on. So that's one thing. And, what's the remedy for being programmed and conditioned? What's the remedy for a constant attempt at indoctrination and desensitization? Awareness, curiosity, and a relationship with Jesus. A desire to know and live the truth. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the life. Okay? The truth part is so important. A desire to seek truth is inherent in somebody who is a follower of Jesus Christ. And don't let anyone tell you differently. Like if your pastor in your church is discouraging you asking questions, whether it's about the Bible or the word or where we stand on certain subject matter, like that is a red flag and that is a sign for you to run for the hills, because throughout the Bible, it said, seek and you will find. Jesus commended churches and communities for asking questions, even asking questions of the apostles themselves. So don't let anyone tell you that you can't be curious. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't ask questions. You absolutely can, and you should. And it is the only way to stay out of the matrix of indoctrination and programming and control, is to continually be curious, continually be asking questions, continually ask the question, if this was a lie, if this thing that I believe or this thing that I'm being told or this thing that I'm being shown was a lie, who would benefit from me believing the lie? And if that somebody is a government or it is a financial institution or it is a major corporation, if they are the ones that would benefit from you believing the lie, you better be questioning it. You better be diving deep into that, being curious and questioning it, okay? So the thing that sparked this episode and the thing that I really wanted to come on and talk about, and I had to actually sit with it for many more days than I thought I was going to have to. I recorded the Hey, I'm Back episode, and I was actually planning to record this episode the next day. And now, we're almost a week out. Actually, we may be a week out from that happening. And yeah, it took me a minute. I had gone to play paddle I think it was actually last Monday. So a week ago, I went to play paddle, and I'm in Bali. So in on the other side of the world, if you're in the United States listening to this, it would have been your Sunday, but it was my Monday. I went to play paddle. And when I came out, I opened my phone briefly and went to check my messages, and I saw something in Instagram that said that there was a TikTok video of Perez Hilton harming himself. And I want to give just a little bit of background here, because I had actually been closely following Perez Hilton's journey. He had a situation and an instance where he almost died from an infection. And he did die, and he had a NDE. And I believe that he actually was officially dead. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me on that. But he either died or had a very, very near death experience where he says that he met God. Now, Perez Hilton, if you don't know who he calls himself the original celebrity influencer. He was kind of, one of the founders of TMZ, that TMZ type world celebrity news reporting. And, early in his career, he did it in an absolutely horrible way. He was a bully. He was incredibly mean. But he's a celebrity gossip personality, essentially. And he's been around for a very, very long time. He also is a gay man who was a self-proclaimed atheist. He did not believe in God, and he was very, very vocal about that. Well, a few years ago, he actually came out and started making some amends for some of his behavior and how he had treated certain people. There were some instances of people that attempted suicide based on some of the things that he was saying online about them and spreading about them online. And he had come under fire for that. And so he had come out and, made some amends and some public apologies and said he was going to change his ways and he was going to be much nicer in the way that he dealt with celebrity gossip. And I think there's just a whole stable of people out there on the internet that hate this guy, okay? Because he was incredibly horrible to people and was very nasty in the way that he would deliver his celebrity gossip and his news. In fact, I think there's a lot of celebrities out there that created and maintained friendships with him to kind of stay out of, his war path and his path of fire. And so, I knew of him. I worked in the entertainment industry. I've been around that world for a very long time. And so, I know who he is. I've known who he is. And I found this recent story about him finding God very fascinating. So I had been following his journey and I had been praying for him actually because, one of the things was he came out of this experience and he was like, I met God. I believe in God. Like straight away was like, I met God. I believe in God. And then he decided to start reading the Bible. And he went home from the hospital. I think he was in the hospital for 21 days. It was quite bad. He was very, very sick. And he went home and he began reading the Bible. And he started sharing the journey of him reading the Bible. He was talking about it every day. He was talking about God every day. He came under an massive amount of attack from Hollywood and celebrity culture because he was talking about God on his platform. And so, I'm following this. I'm like, this is really interesting. I'm praying for him. He's in a struggle as he's reading the Bible because, again, he's a homosexual man. He's trying to navigate, what do I believe in here? Do I believe at all? How do I live my life? And in the midst of, he had lost a tremendous amount of weight. His health was obviously really suffering. He has struggled with mental health stuff his whole life. And so I think the mental health stuff had also started kicking up. And you were seeing that in some of his videos, but he was being very open and very vulnerable in his journey. And so, I think just maybe a week or a couple of weeks after he was actually sent home, he started having pain in his leg and claimed that in a revelation from God, he was told to go to the hospital, even though he had just been there and they had sent him home and said everything was fine. He was told to go to the hospital. He went to the hospital and they identified that this infection had come back, and he had a massive blood clot in his leg that literally would have created a complete aneurysm. He would have died, right? Because this blood clot was the length of his femur, essentially, in his leg. And so, he went back to the hospital and really pressed for them to look and see what was going on. And he claimed that this was God. This was God speaking to him that told him to go do this. So he was even more committed to this journey with God and navigating this journey. So, from what I understand, the medicine that people take after having health issues like this, particularly staph and MRSA infections, that medicine is actually quite hard on the body and incredibly hard on the brain from a mental health perspective. So he's been taking this medicine. He decided to move out of Los Angeles. He moved to Miami. He has 3 children that he's had through surrogacy. So he is the father of 3 children. He moved in with his mother in Florida and his 3 children, and has been navigating this journey with God, his healing journey, and his mental health journey. So when I opened my phone and I saw this, I was like, oh, wow. And it was it's trending on X. I am almost never on X, you guys. The only time I'm on X is when my husband sends me AI stuff that he wants me to look at. I'm just not an X person. I never have been, never got into it. And so X is not my platform of choice. But they were it's trending on X. And so I was just hopping on the back of a motorbike. When I go play paddle, I typically don't drive my motorbike because I have to go through really busy streets. So I'll just like hop on the back of a motorbike and I'll listen to whatever podcast or thing that I'm listening to. And so I really felt a prompting to open X and to look and see. And I opened X, you guys, and I was literally dropped immediately into this video of Perez Hilton harming himself. So I'm going to give a little bit of a warning here because I am going to be a little bit graphic and I'm going to talk about this self-harm and what I experienced while I was watching it. So I do want to just give a trigger warning here. If you think that this is something that will be difficult for you to actually hear the details of what I'm going to explain, please just go to the show notes because we will indicate in the show notes at what minute I stop speaking about the graphic part of this in case you want to miss this. I definitely pray about this, check in with yourself. I do not want to trigger anyone. I do not want, I don't want to re-traumatize anyone that's maybe seen this video. So if you want to opt out of this portion of the podcast, I encourage you to do that. If you feel like your mental health will be affected in any way. So I just say that, as I go into it, and also just want to say, a quick prayer here. Heavenly Father, please, as I reveal this information to this audience and as I share my experience of seeing that Perez Hilton video, we ask that anyone under the sound of my voice just be covered in the blood of Jesus and be protected, and that clouds of confusion be sent to the enemy's camp in relation to this podcast, to the words that I'm going to speak, and to anyone that is on the receiving end and hearing what I'm about to share. We ask that this instance and this horrible situation with Perez Hilton, it be used for good, that you intervene and redeem this situation, and that anyone that has been impacted by the trauma of witnessing this horror, there's no other way to say it, witnessing this horror, anyone that saw the video, anyone that came underneath any type of spell or occult working that was intended to be transmitted, that fall dead to the ground now in the mighty name of Jesus, and that anyone that saw that video be covered in the blood of Jesus, and that any door that was opened as a result of watching that video or seeing that video be closed now in the name of Jesus. And I just ask that anyone that's listening to this podcast, that they be protected, and that this information be used simply for equipping and helping them to be able to move forward with open eyes that the veil has been removed, and that they be able to walk confidently outside of the intentional occult programming that came as a result of this incident. And I pray all that in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. So I don't typically pray on this podcast, which I'm sure you guys know if you listen or if you have listened. That's actually a pretty rare thing for me. But what I did witness was incredibly horrific. And I want to share my experience. I want to share the revelation that came to me as I was going through the experience, and I want to share where I sit with it now. And again, this is not in the name of glorifying what happened. This is not meant to re-traumatize anyone. This is not meant to traumatize anyone. This is meant to equip you and to help you understand how some of these occult spells and major occult workings, how they happen, how they take place, and what the intention is behind them, so that you can be aware and prepared, and also prepare your family. So I open X and I immediately see this video, and it's an immediate shock in my body. I can't even move. I was getting onto the motorbike. I couldn't even fully get on the motorbike. I'm looking at this and I'm horrified. Okay. He's covered head to toe with blood, and he has a tool of some kind, and he is slicing his body open. And immediately I am like, I see his eyes, and immediately I am like, that is not Perez Hilton. That is a demon. that a demon has taken over this man's body. I mean, I saw it in the spirit as clearly as I'm seeing the tree outside my window right now. Like, it was so obvious to me. The way that he was speaking, his movements, the way that he was behaving, he was laughing as he was slicing himself open. He was cutting himself all over. It was horrific. I felt like I was a bit suspended in time and frozen. And I think I probably watched 5 to 7 seconds. I'm not quite sure how long, but I heard Jesus say so loudly to me, "Out now." And I just turned my phone off. And in fact, I just clicked it off, and I was so nervous that I was going to open it up and see it again that I turned my phone on, and I was just trying to not look at it and close apps and things because I did not want to see that again. It was so horrific. So I drove home and I was in a state of shock. I was shocked and traumatized from what I had seen. And I immediately went into prayer and on the back of this motorbike. And I immediately went into prayer and I immediately was like, Jesus, was I not supposed to see that? Why did I see that? And I was like, do I need to repent for looking at that? Do I need to, close doors? The feeling of evil that came upon me when I watched that video was crushing. And immediately I heard from Jesus. And I think that was probably the only thing that really helped me from being in a full trauma response to seeing that video is immediately I heard from Jesus, and Jesus said, "No, you were meant to see that. Now go warn your community." And so as soon as I got home, I mean, the post was rambling. It wasn't super coherent, but immediately I put out a post and said, do not watch this. And if you have children, make sure they do not watch this. And so as I sat with it, I mean, I was wrecked for the whole day. I was so disturbed, but I had an immediate awareness that this was ritualistic in nature. That, and again, just so you know, I did not watch the whole video. I immediately knew that something was wrong because this was on TikTok, and originally, it was said that this streamed for 34 minutes. So for 34 minutes, he was engaged in this self-mutilation ritual online. TikTok later came out and made a statement that said that their statement was literally, it was only about half of the reported time. So I don't know if that means 15 minutes, if that means 17 minutes, if that means 20 minutes. It was 20 minutes too long, okay? It was 17 minutes too long. It was 15 minutes too long. It was 15 seconds too long. They stated that within the first 90 seconds, their moderators had been made aware, but it was moderator error that stopped the video from being taken down. Now, I call complete BS on this, okay? I'm sorry, but I know people that have had accidental nip showing, falls out in an outfit that's a total mistake, that it gets caught straight away and taken down. So you're going to tell me that this video where this atrocity is taking place, it's moderator error. It stayed up for I don't even know how long. It was a really long time. And unfortunately, we live in a day and age and in a society where this type of violence is glorified. And so what happened was a ton of people were watching the video on TikTok. They recorded the video and they went and posted it on X. So this video spread like wildfire. I mean, it was everywhere on X. So eventually TikTok, gets the video taken down. They take it down from the other pages that it was on TikTok. And eventually, I think X got the majority of the videos down. However, then what starts happening is people start taking their recorded videos of this and simply blurring the videos. And then the videos are being allowed on social media. Not better, you guys. Because literally, you're seeing a figure in the back of a blurred video, naked, completely naked, covered head to toe in blood, and you're seeing the movements of him committing this self-mutilation. So not any better, okay? One of the things that I became aware of immediately after this was this video, seeing this video was intended to open doors for the kingdom of darkness. So this video was intended to traumatize. It was intended to activate MK Ultra sleeper cells. It was intended to activate people who have been programmed to commit violence. And part of the video, he began talking about how he was doing this for his kids. And I'm going to start having some guests on the show. They're going to talk deeper about some of the things that happen in Hollywood and why we see so many Hollywood stars, children becoming trans, why we see so many Hollywood stars, children dying, why we see so many people in Hollywood dying so young. Another one just today or yesterday, unfortunately, Hayden Panettiere passed away after a long-standing battle with mental health and addiction, and just such a demonized woman. So definitely praying for her and her family and her daughter, her young daughter. But this is something very common. Immediately after seeing this video, I was like, he is performing this self-mutilation ritual live on camera, on TikTok, to prevent his children from being sacrificed. Like, it was clear as day to me. And these type of occult workings are more common than you would think. Now, typically, we see them in the form of art, right? Supposed art, where we're seeing more and more in our pop, especially in pop music and R&B music, occult symbolism. We'll see blood. We'll see gore. We'll see satanic symbols. We'll see artists dressed up like devils. We'll see ritual sacrifice being committed in concerts in the name of art and entertainment. The woman Abramovic, who is very close with Lady Gaga, she has her soul cooking dinners, and they have cakes, red velvet cakes in the form of women's bodies that people cut into, and bathtubs full of blood, and they're the proclivity for the perverted and the depraved and the violence and just horror that exists in the entertainment industry is really mind-blowing and boggling. I was in a state of shock of how many of these videos went up on the internet. That was the thing I think that struck me the most, that I was the most sad about, or the most, I don't even know the word for it. I was horrified. I was literally horrified. And I started to realize that this is where we're going, and there's not going to be less of this. We're going to see more of this. We've been desensitized for so long through the horror movies, through the concerts and the music videos and the video games that our children are playing that are incredibly gory and incredibly bloody and incredibly violent, that we see an actual human being doing this live on TikTok, and many people's immediate response is record it and go post it on the internet. It's not a movie. It's not a scene from a movie. That was a man. That was a human man, a human life, a father doing that to himself. And we are so desensitized that people's immediate response was, oh, I better record this and go post it on the internet. I'm going to get good engagement. I'm going to get clicks from it. That tells you what state we are in as a collective. That is incredibly terrifying, that we are that desensitized. And then I think back to the Epstein files, and I'm like, wow, like, just look at society as a whole right now. We now have proof of these absolutely horrendous things that are happening, that our politicians and the people in control of our governments are raping and torturing children, okay? That they are pedophiles. And we just wake up the next day and we go pump our gas and we go to work and we go to the grocery store and we come home and we're like, oh, yeah, that's really too bad. There's nothing I can do about it. And I'm just going like, what? What is going on here? What is actually going on? We are so desensitized and probably collectively traumatized that we have to compartmentalize to survive. And what's wild about that to me is that that's exactly what happens to these child victims who experience these atrocities, is their brains are forced to split to protect the child. We talked about this recently on an episode with Dr. Robin Braun on Faith on the Fringe. That episode is actually live now. And I have an episode coming up with Dr. Robin where we're going to go deeper into the Freemasonry stuff and more of the mind control and programming. So she's going to be an upcoming guest on this podcast. And there is an episode already released on Faith on the Fringe with her. I highly recommend go listen to that. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But the human mind is incredible. And it will protect you at all costs. And so, dissociative identity disorder or multiple personalities, as it used to be known, it exists to protect people. And so I look at this type of thing and I think, wow, we're so desensitized that we can see we know it's not a movie. We know it's not art. We know it's not AI. This actually happened. This man actually did this to himself. And we're just seeing it. It's just out in the open and it's on the internet and we're watching it and then we're just going about our day. And it really begs the question, how collectively traumatized are we already? How much are each of us already operating in some kind of mental split for protection of our psyche? Because honestly, to me, nothing else really makes sense. It doesn't make sense to me that a human being can watch another human being do that and their response is either like, oh, well, that's too bad that happened. Let me go on about my life. Or their response is, oh my gosh, that could get me a lot of engagement. Let me record that with my phone and then go post it on my social media. The only explanation I have for that is that these experiences that we've experienced have created dissociative identity disorder in everyone to some extent. And that worries and concerns me because everything that we know about mind control and programming tells us that those types of traumas can be exploited. Those types of traumas and splits and compartmentalization can be used to activate or trigger people to perform a certain way, to do a certain thing, to follow a certain narrative, to follow a certain program. And then it begs the question, because now we're starting to see all of this research come out about the mRNA vaccines. And I'm going to get this podcast taken down before it even gets out there with everything I've talked about in it. But we're seeing evidence of massive brain changes in the people that have taken those vaccines. There's been some research that's coming out recently that's talking about that the vaccines are causing amnesia. And I'm like, okay, so we ran an op on the entire world, okay, which they did with the COVID vaccine or with COVID. And then they presented their solution, which was the COVID vaccine. We're seeing the horrific science research that's coming out now on what that's done to people. 85% of women were losing pregnancies, not 15%, 85%. Their fertility or their pregnancies were impacted. The myocarditis, now a fact. right? Unknown cause of death, skyrocketed. Turbo cancers, now attributed to the vaccine. Vaccine recalls have happened. So we know that whole thing was nothing good. You still got people out there taking boosters. And I'm like, what in the what? Like, are people not seeing this information? But what I realized is I really believe that we are living in two different timelines. One timeline of people who have bought into the public narrative, hook, line, and sinker, took the vaccine, now have amnesia, and have been put in a state of dissociative personality disorder. They have a part that's operating for them that is not their full consciousness, that is not their full human spirit operating in them, okay? And then we have these major occult workings like this self-mutilation ritual that's happened that is intended to impact people in a certain way. I'm not going to pretend that I know what the programming is or that I know what the occult working is or I know the purpose of the ritual, but as somebody who's been in the occult, I recognize a ritual when I see it. And now, this is all my theory. And I just want to say that, okay? This part about us being in a collective state of dissociative identity disorder, that's my theory. This whole thing about everything that I'm talking about here, other than things that I'm saying have been, referenced and researched and resourced and, are coming out, the things about the vaccine and things like that. This is my opinion. This is my feeling on what is actually happening in the collective right now and why we're seeing the responses that we're seeing. When I put two and two together and I look at the whole picture and I look at the whole picture from a bird's eye view and I see what's happening and I see how they're doing the things that they're doing, it's really the only thing that makes sense. And it's frightening. It is frightening. So, what can you do? What can you do? Well, you can pray on a daily basis that your eyes and your ears be protected, that your eye gates and your ear gates be protected. You can be very selective about what you're watching. You can be very selective about what your children are watching and what your children are participating in. Most importantly, you can cultivate your relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ of Nazareth and begin having daily conversation with him. And asking him what is for you and what is not for you. One of the things that I pray all the time is like, Lord, please don't allow anything that I'm not meant to see or hear to come into or around me. Protect me from that. Let nothing get by my prophetic radar. I pray almost daily for an increase in the discernment of spirits so that I can see clearly what is happening in the kingdom of darkness and what is an occult working and what is a ritual. And, I stand in my authority in Christ Jesus because that authority was given to me when I accepted him into my heart. And I pray that my steps be ordered by my Heavenly Father and that I am shown the correct path and the correct direction for me. And quite frankly, I pray a lot just to see through all the BS and all the noise of the kingdom of darkness. I want to clock it. I want to see it. And it's one of the reasons why I'm recording this podcast, because I do want the kingdom of darkness to know that I see them, that I see what they're doing. They're not slick. Not all of us are just buying this hook, line, and sinker, right? And some of us are speaking out and some of us are actively trying to take back territory in the online space, in the devil's domain. So, yeah, so shortly after this happens with Perez Hilton, the following day, I'm researching some stuff and I'm looking some stuff up because I really want to understand what I saw, what I witnessed. And one of the things that I came across was that he had just reviewed Ariana Grande's latest video and that there were some quite disturbing scenes in this Ariana Grande video. So I was like, okay, this time I prayed first. I prayed these prayers: protect my eye gates, protect my ear gates, only show me something that I'm meant to see and let me see through whatever it is. And so I went and watched this Ariana Grande video called Petal. First of all, please do not go try to find the Perez Hilton video. I know that some people listen to content like this and they think, oh, like, I just want to go see it. I want to see what she's talking about. Please don't. Please do not do that to yourself. I think I watched it so that I could give this warning of don't go searching for it. It is incredibly traumatic. And I don't believe that it's something that anybody should see or witness. And I'm incredibly grateful that I followed the instructions to go and do a warning to my community, because a couple of mothers actually came back to me and were like, thank you so much, because my kids were talking about this and I was able to tell them not to watch it. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's all I did by issuing that warning, then, a good job was done. But I'm also not encouraging you to go watch this petal video. Less horrific, because it is actually a piece of entertainment, but kind of more horrific because I have no idea why somebody would want to put out a video like this. But I do find it incredibly fascinating that this video was put out. And I won't share the whole details of the video, but essentially she is a actress and she's auditioning for a role. And there's so much symbolism in this video. But the part that I want to speak about is that she continues to get rejected by this panel of industry executives. Okay, you guys, this was actually really wild. I recorded the first part of this podcast yesterday, and then in the middle of sharing the podcast, it completely cut out. And I was like, wow, that's wild, because I watched the whole podcast upload, and then I just went and pulled the transcript from the podcast, and the transcript was there, but the video wasn't there. And my editor was like, yo, like, the podcast just cut out. So clearly, like, this part that I'm going to re-record today and share, there was something in there that definitely, like, needs to be out in the world. So I'm going to kind of start over from the place that it got cut off. But I definitely am also going to have Shane put this into the podcast so that you know that, like, whatever's coming next, there was definitely something happening in the Kingdom of Darkness where they didn't want this part out there, but we will not be deflected from sharing our message. Okay, so I was talking about the Ariana Grande video, and I was saying that I wasn't going to share all the details of the video, but essentially they were rejecting her. This panel of music industry executives were rejecting her over and over and over again. And they were, like, writing the feedback on this piece of paper and then stamping it with this huge stamp that said not enough. So she experiences these rejections. And then after the last one, she literally goes back, gets a chainsaw, comes out and slaughters them all. Like, she murders them with a chainsaw and is literally covered head to toe in blood, with blood, like, dripping down her. And I think it really struck me because I was like, wow, like, Ariana Grande's original audience was probably, like, young girls ages like 6 to 12. And now, like, as she has progressed through her career, obviously, some of those fans have grown up. But, we're still dealing with younger girls in their teens and into their 20s and maybe like 30s that are following this and love Ariana Grande and, are going and seeing this video. And I'm like, wow, if my child saw that, I would be so upset. And this video, like, unlike the Perez Hilton video that, has been taken down, for the most part, this video is just out there. You can go see it on YouTube. You can go see it on Vimeo. Like, it's out there. And what I thought was fascinating as I was doing the research of this and kind of, connecting the dots was that Perez Hilton reviewed this video the day before his incident took place. So he literally recreated in real life something that he saw in a music video. He was naked. She wasn't naked in the video, but she was covered head to toe in blood. He was covered head to toe in blood. He was naked. And that's when I actually really started to see the occult workings of what was happening here. Pieces of art and entertainment that are created in that way that the Ariana Grande video was created are done so intentionally. They are imbued, ritual is done over them, spells are cast into them, and those are intended to reach the public through the viewing of the video or the movie or the piece of entertainment or at the concert. And it's intended to open doors. And there are going to be people that are more susceptible to that, to witnessing that and viewing that than others based upon what's happened in their bloodline, and what's happened in their own life and what doors are currently open in their own life. But those kinds of things are intended to create open doorways for people, for the kingdom of darkness to come in and wreak havoc in their life. That's why those things are created. So you take a man like Perez Hilton, who clearly is dealing with some demons. He's got a lot going on. He's in the middle of switching teams. He's trying to come over to the kingdom of heaven, but he's still 1 foot in the kingdom of darkness. He's got 1 foot in one kingdom and 1 foot in the other. And I frequently say on this podcast and also on Faith on the Fringe, if you've got 1 foot in each kingdom, you're protected in neither. So he finds himself in this situation. He watches this Ariana Grande video. He's got open doors, obviously. And what happens? A day later, he is now performing a live public humiliation and mutilation ritual. That's not a coincidence. And as somebody who understands how the occult works and knows how the occult works, I can tell you that's not a coincidence. So be very careful what you're watching. Be very careful what your children are watching. Review it first. Look at it. Research something before you watch it. You know, honestly, for me these days, I do a tremendous amount of research before I watch a movie. I want to know what I'm getting into. And I look at the things that I do end up watching from all different kinds of angles. I think now at any point in time when my husband and I watch a movie, actually go see a movie or take the time to go watch a movie, we're doing it with the intention of seeing what the programming is. Like, what are they trying to indoctrinate us into? What are they telling us is going to come in the future? Because it's all programming. Like, if it's produced by a major movie studio or a major record label, you can be guaranteed that there is programming in there, okay? And probably, unless you're watching something that's coming out of Angel Studios, like pretty much everything you're watching is like CIA mind control programming and conditioning. But if you go into it knowing and understanding that, and you go into it curious from that perspective, you can enjoy the movie and you can enjoy the entertainment, but you can also clock the programming and the conditioning. And same with television shows, right? Once you start to see it, you can't unsee it. And that's what I really want for you. I want you to walk away from this podcast with an awareness that this is happening, and with a heightened sense of diligence around really paying attention to what you're exposing yourself to. Your ear gates, your eye gates, the podcasts you're listening to, the music you're listening to, the songwriters that are writing the music of the artists that you're listening to. The video games that your kids are playing, just everything. We have to have a heightened awareness at this time. And again, the most important thing is your relationship with Jesus. Getting ready to go see a movie? Pray about it first. Jesus, should I be watching this movie? And if I do go see this movie, what should I be aware of? So this is a lot of what we're going to be talking about and discussing on this season of the podcast. The reality is that I'm still recovering from seeing that Perez Hilton video. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's been a rough week. It's been a lot. I know that I saw it for a reason. And by the way, he is recovering. He did get help. They were able to get him to a hospital. His family has come out and has made some statements that it's going to be a long road of recovery for him. He is going to require surgery. He may have already had that surgery, but they did say that he was going to be required to have surgery from those wounds. They were significant. And they haven't really spoken on his mental state yet, except to just say that it's a struggle and it's going to be a long road of recovery for him. So, regardless of how you feel about him, again, he is a human being. He's a father. Yes, he's made a lot of mistakes. And from my perspective, I believe he's been working on remedying those and making amends for those mistakes and working on being a different kind of person moving forward. And so I would just ask that if you find it in your heart to say a prayer for Perez Hilton, and certainly for his 3 children and his sister and his mother who are walking through all of this with him. They could definitely use your prayers at this time, and pray for Ariana Grande for multiple reasons, but she is a beautiful young lady who is struggling with demons, and it is very, very clear that she is incredibly demonized. The actors and the actresses and the singers and the songwriters and the rappers and that are in these industries, they are demonic industries, and they are industries that are intentionally demonic. And people do sell their souls for fame. It is a thing. It is not something of the movies. It is not made up. It is not a joke. It happens. It is real. And it's interesting to me because I think, like, at one point, I was on a road towards becoming a singer, and God had other plans for my life. Dodged that bullet, thankfully. And at one point, I really felt cheated. I felt cheated that I didn't get to have that experience. And I was really sad, that I didn't make it. But wow, I do look at that like I dodged a bullet now. And I have so much compassion in my heart for actors and actresses and singers and songwriters that find themselves in these situations in Hollywood. We're seeing more and more people attempting to extract themselves from and escape Hollywood or the entertainment industry, and they're speaking out about this stuff, but then those people are made to look like they're crazy. Believe those people, okay? When you hear them speak out about the horrors that happen to them inside the entertainment industry and in Hollywood and in the music industry, believe them, okay? They're not lying to you. They're not making it up. It's true. It's all true. All the horrific things that you're hearing, they're true. Just yesterday we learned that Hayden Panettiere died of an overdose. They say an overdose, but she was someone else who has been speaking out about the things that she experienced in the entertainment industry and was getting ready to expose some big player, and she winds up dead. She winds up dead right after she's written a biography and right after she's appeared to be doing so much better. All of a sudden, she dies of a drug overdose. So just keep your eyes open. And I guess for today, I'll just say that I have an incredible episode releasing next week with Sarah Batteri, who is a singer and songwriter, and has lived and worked in the entertainment industry. She's a country music singer. She actually has the largest unreleased song catalog in the entertainment industry, like 30,000 songs. It's wild. She's incredibly funny. She is so hilarious. She is known as the feral Christian online or the cigarette mom. I just absolutely love her to death. I actually had a 2-hour conversation with her last night, just talking about all the crazy things in the Bible that we love and we love to chat about. You're really going to enjoy that episode. It's coming next Wednesday. It will be much lighter than this one, so that'll be nice. Look forward to that. But anything that I referenced in the show that I wanted you to be able to take away or any resource that I wanted you to be able to access, it will be in the show notes. Again, I just want to say, please do not go seek out the Perez Hilton video. I also recommend that you don't go watch that Ariana Grande video again, because you just don't know what doors are personally open for you and what that may trigger. Protect your eye gates, protect your ear gates, stay close to Jesus. I will see you next time.